So you want to play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, but you're on a budget. Well, don't worry about it, because in this video, I'm going to show you the 5 best budget decks for the September 2023 post-ban list competitive Yu-Gi-Oh format. Let's jump into it. What's up, Ocean? You got Matt here, and welcome to the competitive Yu-Gi-Oh video. You know, I love Yu-Gi-Oh, but the game can be pretty expensive, especially if you want to compete at the highest level. Thankfully, with the release of the 2023 Megatins, there are so many more decks that become a whole lot cheaper. Now, this is really important for all of us budget players, so if you're asking yourself, what is good post-September 2023 ban list, and that's not going to break the bank, then make sure to stick around and watch the video, because each of these decks should be costing you around $100 or less. And if you're excited for the video, then do me a favor and smash the like button, because at 60 likes, I'll be bringing you a deck profile for any of the decks you see on this list. Also, if you enjoy deck profiles, combo guides, competitive discussions, and competitive Yu-Gi-Oh videos in general, then make sure to subscribe to the channel to help us reach our end of year goal of 2,000 subscribers. Also, quick special announcement, as of next week, I'll be bringing you one extra video every single week on Wednesday, so I will see you then. Now, with all that being said, here are the top 5 best budget decks for the September 2023 post-ban list competitive Yu-Gi-Oh format. Let's jump into it. Starting off at number 5, we have Swordsoul. You might be saying to yourself, Matt, what the hell? Swordsoul is not budget at all. Barone is $50 alone. That's half the budget. Yeah, Barone is expensive. That is the only card on this list that is actually really expensive. And yes, you can be playing other cards in the deck like Triple Tactics, Thrust, and Talent, but you're gonna have to make some sacrifices to play a budget variant of a Yu-Gi-Oh deck, especially like Swordsoul. But honestly, Moye is dirt cheap. It is like $5 per copy. That's 15 bucks there. Emergence is like $4 right there. That's gonna be $12. So in a way, you have about $25 for the rest of the core. But every single other card in the deck is like $1.50. And the rest of the deck, there's so much space in the main deck for going second cards, hand traps, board breakers, just meta deterrents that you can just fill them out with whatever you'd like it to be. And most of these cards are pretty cheap. Cards like Book of Moon, cards like Ash Blossom, or Effect Veiler, cards like this have gotten a lot less expensive nowadays, which is really good for a deck like Swordsoul, which has so much space. The best part about this as well is there's so much room for improvement. The fact that you can just keep investing a little bit of money every single week to increase the deck just a little bit more, and then just make it a whole lot better by increasing your side deck or increasing the main deck. We won't be able to have access to copies of Infinite Impermanence in this deck because of the budget just yet, but that is one of the better things to increase or to upgrade at this point in time once you get the budget for it. So every 2 months, I make an updated top 5 best budget decks, and I'll be honest with you, Swordsoul has been on every single one except for I think maybe one of them, and that's saying something. So personally, I am just a little bit sick of Swordsoul right now. I just want the deck to go into a corner, crawl, and die there. But that's not going to happen. The deck is really fun, fair, interactive, and for that reason, I don't think it has any way it's going to be hit on the ban list at all, because it's not going to be one of the absolute best meta decks. However, what it does have is, in my opinion, a pretty decent Unchained matchup. The fact that you're able to banish the cards instead of sending them to the graveyard or destroying them is really nice, and you also have the ability to bounce them back to the hand with a card like Tenyi Spirit Fushida. The Unchained cards really thrive on being destroyed by card effect, and the fact that Swordsoul is able to just get around that is absolutely critical for its performance and place in the metagame going forward. Now, I will say again, this deck, you will have to make some sacrifices, but you can improve, you can get better with it, and the deck has a room to grow as well, which is super valuable and really what you want out of a budget deck. At number 4, we have Runick Plunder Patrol. You know, Plunder Patrol is one of my favorite archetypes of all time. I just love the way the archetype plays. It's got a bunch of really cool mechanics, interactions, and can snowball very quickly. 3 of every single Plunder Patrol card will cost you around $10, so the deck is super cheap. And I'll be honest, you don't even need that many of them in this format. The fact that the deck really relies heavily on having access to your Plunder Patrol monsters in your hand to use as ammo for the actual effect negation or destruction effects of your Plunder Patrol ships from the extra deck is pretty important, so you have to be able to draw these cards when you want to use these effects. Now, this is where the Runick engine comes in. Not only are you getting access to Hugin, which you can search for the field spell, the Runick Fountain, but you're also giving yourself an extra body on board to link off into your Blackbeard, which is very important for the Plunder Patrol engine. Now, what Runick really specializes in is actually keeping cards in your hand and drawing cards on both your turn and on your opponent's turn. So the fact that you can draw up to 3 cards every single turn is super valuable to refresh your hand and get access to all of these Plunder Patrol monsters to be used as ammo for the negation and destruction effects, which again are very important. Now, the deck can be merged with the Adventure engine, which is pretty potent. Just keep in mind that merging all 3 of these engines together can be pretty tight on deck space. You may want to go up above the 40 or 45 card limit if you're going to be going with all 3 of these. Now you can forgo the adventure engine in exchange for cards like the Kaijus or Dark Ruler No More, or even cards like Evenly Matched, other just hand traps in general, because the deck really appreciates having all these good going second cards, because it's one of the better going second decks available right now in Yu-Gi-Oh! On top of that, now that a Rise Heart is banned, the deck is so much better. This is the best thing to happen to Plunder Patrol in a long time. Your cards can actually go to the graveyard now and trigger their powerful effects, which is super important. But in my opinion, the best part about the deck is that the entire deck, extra main side, can cost you around $50. Shout out to the Megatons for reprinting all the Runick cards. They are dirt cheap now. $4 for Runick Tips, $1.50 for Runick Fountains. Wow, it is an absolute dream. So if you haven't picked up this entire deck for around $50 to $60 so far, I would definitely recommend doing so. It is really good, and you can spend the remaining part of your budget there on good generic going second cards that can be implemented in a lot of other decks. So keep that in mind when you're looking at potentially getting Runick Plunder Patrol. The third best budget deck for the September 2023 post-banlist format is going to be Rikka Sunavalon. This deck is the best combo deck that I have on the tier list today, and for good reason. The deck has always been pretty budget, but the fact that now Regulus has gone to be reprinted in the Megatons means that the entire deck can be got for less than $100 pretty easily. There's only one card in the main deck that's even over $3, which is crazy. On top of that, it's a one of right now, which is, again, insane. So hopefully Snowdrop the Rikka Fairy does get a reprint soon, because it is the only expensive card in the deck right now. The deck also has a lot of room for going second cards and hand traps, about 10 to 12 spots at least in the main deck, which is really powerful, so just get whatever hand trap suits your budget right now. But the real reason why this deck is so high on the tier list is because against some of the best meta decks, it has a really good way to get rid of their problematic monsters and the way they want to play the game. Think of a deck like Unchained. That deck loves to have cards be destroyed by card effect. The fact that this deck tributes for cost instead of destroying cards is really important. Most of the decks that you're going to see on this list don't have an emphasis of destruction effects. This one here especially, tributing for cost, is so good because your opponent can't respond to it, which is insane. As for purely, think about a card like Expurely Noir with 5+ materials, which is immune to the activated effects of cards. Well, Rikka Con doesn't activate. It allows you to tribute cards for cost, which is so good because you can actually tribute the copy of the Expurely Noir and allow you to get over that really problematic boss monster. So the top two decks in the format, in my opinion, are handled pretty easily by the removal of Rikka Sunavalon, which is absolutely incredible. On top of that, I really don't expect the deck to be hit on a ban list because, first off, the deck has performed decently well, not incredibly well over the course of its lifespan, but the deck just doesn't have anything really unfair about it. Maybe Rikka Con is kind of unfair, but it's not the most broken thing in the world, and there are much bigger threats in the format. I do think that eventually this deck will fall out of the metagame, but not now. I think it's a smart investment for at least the next year, which for $100 is definitely a really wise choice in my opinion. At number 2, we have Floowandereeze. You know, a Rise Heart got banned, and Kashtira is falling down the tier list, and that means that Flu is now the next best deck to be able to utilize a card like Dimension Shifter, which automatically means it's going to be higher up on the tier list. D-Shifter is a hell of a card, and Flu plays it probably better than any other deck in the format. The deck has a great matchup against Unchained, which is likely going to be the best deck of the upcoming format, which is so valuable. The biggest flaw with Flu though is going to be the consistency. You gotta make sure you have access to Robina. Where is Magnificent Map or Avenue Adventure? Well, they're in the Megatons, either last year's or this year's, which is fantastic because at the time of recording this video, every single Floowandereeze card is 50 cents or less, except for Avenue Adventure, which is like $1. That's crazy. This deck is so inexpensive. Now, a full power non-budget Flu deck will be probably playing 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity, but for now, 3 copies of Duality and 3 copies of Extravagance is really the best that you're going to be doing, and they get the job done. On top of that, a card like Harpy's Featherstorm is really good for the deck. It's just an auto win in so many different matchups, so it's probably the most expensive but mandatory card you have to have for the deck. Oh, and did I mention that the deck can play D-Shifter very well? Look, Flu just won his first YCS ever at YCS Cancun, so I'm pretty excited to see how the deck's going to evolve over time, at least with the metagame changing. But that being said, I'm really not excited to play against Flu. I absolutely hate playing against it. I'm sure you guys do too. But it is a very cheap deck that is also going to perform very well in its upcoming formats. And the number 1 best budget deck in September 2023 post-banlist format is going to be Labrynth. Yeah, Labrynth. This deck was known for being pretty pricey because of the extra deck requirements and the cards in the main deck, all of that. But the deck now, thanks to the Megatons, is pretty cheap. You know, I was having someone at locals today saying, yeah, Labrynth is so expensive, why is it so pricey? The deck really isn't that expensive at all. All the Labrynth main deck cards are like $10 to $12 total, with the exception of a card like Big Welcome Labrynth, which yes is about $18 to $20 right now, but for 3 cards that are going to cost you $50 to $60 and the rest of it costing you $10 to $12, and then just a bunch of generic trap cards being added in after that, you're doing pretty well for yourself. Yeah, if you want to add cards like Skill Drain or other floodgates like that, it may be a bit more expensive, but you have cards like Dogmatic Punishment, Compulsory Evacuation Device, Tears of the Overroot, even Dimensional Barrier, which are really strong options in the format today. The deck is poised for a really strong run this format, however it does have a pretty unfavorable matchup against Unchained. Now that being said, the more popular Unchained is going to be, people are going to side deck more for that and less for decks like Labrynth, which is really not as good against Unchained, so that could be a little bit of a positive for the Unchained players. You also really don't need an extra deck to play Labrynth. If you really want to just go above and beyond, spend a couple of dollars on Zeus, a couple of dollars on Garura, and you'll be in a really good position, especially off your Dogmatic Punishments to get you extra draws. Getting a good extra deck will increase the ceiling of the deck, but it's not mandatory to play, especially if you're playing on a budget. The deck's also going to get a bit of new support in Age of Overlord in the form of Arias the Labrynth Butler, which really raises the ceiling for the deck and allows you to go for some crazy combo lines. But if all else fails, you always have access to Eradicator, Epidemic Virus, and Deck Devastation Virus for easy wins, which, hey, a win's a win, right? And that is it, the top 5 best budget decks for the September 2023 post-banlist competitive Yu-Gi-Oh format. Now guys, I want you to do me a favor and let me know down in the comments what you thought of the video and the list itself, and of course what you're playing in this upcoming format, and if I missed any budget decks as well. Also, if you enjoyed the video, then make sure to leave a like on the video, because at 60 likes, I'll be bringing you a deck profile for any of the decks that I've shown you in this video. And of course, guys, make sure to subscribe to the channel as well to help us reach our end of year goal of 2,000 subscribers. But thanks so much for watching the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next time.